Don't you walk away from me, Patricia. The words ripped out of me before I could think. Rain slapped the asphalt, and the smell of cut grass hung heavy in the air. Patricia Hennessy stood on my front lawn, her HOA clipboard held like a shield. June's chalk drawings still glowed faintly on the concrete, pink suns, crooked hearts, half smeared by the rain. My 6-year-old was sobbing beside the hydrangeas, one hand clutching the spot where Patricia had yanked her hair. Patricia's lipstick didn't smudge, even now. Your daughter was in violation, Eli. Section 102B, no markings on community property. Community property? My voice broke. She was drawing in front of our house. Patricia's expression barely flickered. Sidewalks are maintained by the HOA. We've been through this. Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that made people believe her. A car door slammed somewhere up the street. Porch lights snapped on, one by one. Russell Keene, my neighbor, stood under his awning, phone in hand. He didn't move closer. He never did. You touched her, I said. You dragged my kid by her hair. Patricia shifted her clipboard higher, like she could hide behind the HOA logo embossed in gold. She wouldn't stop when I asked. I had to enforce compliance. You enforce compliance on a 6-year-old? Raindrops beaded on her glasses. She glanced past me at the cluster of onlookers, neighbors half hidden behind their doors. The kind of audience that makes lies feel safe. Don't twist this, she said softly. I was protecting community standards. June whimpered. I felt something crack in me, something deeper than anger. You think standards matter more than a kid's dignity? Patricia blinked. Her eyes were glassy, rehearsed. If you continue to behave aggressively, Eli, I'll have to file a conduct complaint. Behind her, Russell took a shaky step forward, then stopped. His hand dropped from the phone like he'd just realized it was evidence. Sirens wailed from Mason Street, faint but growing. I didn't call them. Someone else must have. Patricia's expression twitched just enough to betray it. She'd called first. When the cruiser rolled to the curb, the red light strobed across her raincoat, painting her like a saint in a bad church mural. The officer stepped out, scanning between us. Patricia started crying, small, delicate sobs that barely shook her shoulders. She attacked me, she said, pointing toward me. He's unstable. Everyone knows he's had outbursts before. I froze. I knew what she was doing. The veteran angle, the PTSD rumors, the calm homeowner against the broken soldier. The officer's hand hovered near his belt. June pressed her face into my coat. My throat burned, but I kept my voice low. Check her ring. You'll find my daughter's hair in it. The officer hesitated, then asked Patricia to show her hands. Her breath hitched. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. The strand caught in the gold band, glinting in the red light. Patricia stammered something about misunderstanding. The officer nodded, non-committal, and took our statements. The whole time, neighbors filmed through their blinds, pretending they weren't. When it was over, the cruiser drove off to file the report. Patricia adjusted her raincoat and whispered, "This isn't over, Eli. You're not fit for this community." Then she walked back toward her porch, like she hadn't just humiliated a child. I looked down at June. She was still trembling, her little fist balled in my sleeve. "Did I do something bad, Daddy?" That one sentence did more damage than Patricia ever could. I crouched beside her. "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong." Thunder cracked somewhere behind the ridge. The HOA sign rattled in the wind, its metal edges clanging like applause for the wrong person. I carried June inside, dripping onto the hardwood, my pulse still hammering. The clipboard still lay on the lawn, rain pooling on the inked violations. Sidewalk defacement, non-compliant decor, parental misconduct. I stared at it and knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a war she'd started long before today. What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the rules against your child? Hit subscribe, because this gets worse before it gets better. Let me back up and tell you how this started. The next morning, the rain had washed away June's chalk suns, leaving only pale ghosts on the pavement. She kept asking if she could draw again, and I kept dodging the question. I told her the colors needed to rest. Truth was, I couldn't bear to see her bend down on that sidewalk again. By noon, Patricia's violation notice was already taped to my door, laminated, of course. Incident report under review, pending disciplinary hearing, Continued noncompliance will result in fines. The ink hadn't even dried on the police report. Inside, the coffee maker gurgled like it was mocking me. My hands still smelled faintly of motor oil from the job site the day before, but I couldn't focus on work. All I could see was Patricia's face under that umbrella, unbothered, smug. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. I time-stamped photos, logged her letters, even recorded the voicemail she left that morning. Mr. Moran, the board expects your cooperation at next Tuesday's compliance review. Bring proof of ramp permits and safety waivers. I hit replay. The tone was polite, so polished it made me want to break something. Around 2, a knock came. Russell stood there, his flannel darkened by drizzle, holding a grocery bag. "Brought some muffins," he said. "My wife thought June might like them." Behind him, his eyes darted toward Patricia's house across the cul-de-sac. Curtains moved. Of course she was watching. I nodded him in. "Appreciate it." He set the bag on the counter and hesitated. "Look, about yesterday, I didn't mean to just stand there." "You filmed it," I said flatly. He rubbed his neck. "Yeah, habit, I guess. I figured, better to have it than not." "Do you still have it?" He looked toward the window. "I deleted it. Patricia came over after the cops left, said the HOA would handle things internally. She said posting it could be defamation." I stared at him until he looked away. "Defamation," I repeated. "She assaulted my kid, and you're worried about defamation." He shifted his weight. "Eli, I've got a mortgage and a job through her husband's company. You think I want to lose that?" The words hit like a nail through wood. Slow, inevitable. June padded into the kitchen, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Hi, Mr. Russell." He smiled weakly. "Hey, Junebug, you doing okay?" She nodded, shy but forgiving. She always was. Russell's jaw twitched. I could tell the guilt was settling in. After he left, I went outside and stared at the mailbox cluster at the corner. 12 identical boxes gleaming in the weak afternoon sun. Patricia was pruning her roses again, gloved hands moving like clockwork. The neighborhood looked perfect, almost sterile. Every blade of grass measured, every home a mirror image. The kind of place that pretends peace exists. I walked past her house deliberately, feeling her eyes on me. "Morning, Patricia," I said. She smiled without looking up. "Mr. Moran, I trust you'll attend the hearing?" "Wouldn't miss it." "Excellent. We value participation." Her tone was a blade wrapped in honey. That night, I combed through the HOA bylaws. My contractor brain kicked in. Measurements, ordinances, ADA sections. I found Section 204C. Reasonable accommodations shall be permitted where safety and accessibility are concerned. Patricia had skipped that line in every letter. I printed it, highlighted it, and pinned it to my corkboard next to the growing collage of notices. If she wanted to play this as a rules game, fine. I'd beat her at her own script. When I finally crawled into bed, June was asleep, her hair spread across the pillow like a small, defiant flag. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "They don't get to take this from us." At dawn, I woke to the rumble of the HOA's maintenance truck. 2 men in reflective vests were unbolting my ramp. I ran out barefoot. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing?" One of them handed me a clipboard. "Work order, signed by the board." "That ramp's legal," I said, shoving the paper back. "Talk to Patricia," he muttered. By the time I reached her house, she was already on her porch, coffee cup in hand, pretending surprise. "Eli," she said, "they're just following procedure, temporary removal until the compliance review. That ramp is for my daughter." She tilted her head. "Then I suggest you expedite the appeal process." June was at the window, watching. Her lips moved, counting the bolts as they came off one by one. That was the moment I realized Patricia wasn't just enforcing rules. She was testing how much of me she could take before I broke. And if you've ever watched someone dismantle the only thing keeping your family safe, you understand the rage that comes next. But I wasn't going to explode, not yet. I was going to document every word, every screw, every drop of humiliation. Because eventually, someone outside this perfect little prison would see it. By the end of the week, the ramp was gone, and June was stuck inside like a prisoner in her own home. I'd built her a little play corner near the window, markers, sketch pad, a view of the cul-de-sac. But every time she stared outside, I saw her flinch when Patricia walked by. On Friday morning, a new notice arrived. Unauthorized exterior modification, satellite dish installation, non-compliant. I didn't even have a dish. Patricia was making them up faster than I could tear them down. I stepped onto the porch, the air thick with that chemical smell from her roses. Across the street, Russell was mowing, earbuds in, his shoulders tight. He wouldn't look at me. Not after the video, not after the ramp. I called out anyway. "You got a minute?" He cut the mower. The silence afterward was jarring, just birds and the faint hum of sprinklers. He wiped his forehead with his sleeve, avoiding eye contact. "Sure," he said finally. I walked over, hands still stained with grease from rebuilding a generator. "I need that footage back, Russ, the one from that day." He swallowed. "Told you, I deleted it." "Your phone's cloud backs up automatically. You can recover it." He looked at the ground. "Even if I could, my wife's on me to stay out of it. You know how Patricia gets when she's cornered." "Yeah," I said, "I do." He flinched at my tone. For a second I thought he'd turn away again, but then his hand started trembling on the mower handle. "You think I slept that night, watching that kid cry?" His voice cracked. "I wanted to do something. I did. But Patricia? She's got connections, man. Her husband's the city contractor. She could get me fired." The way he said it told me he already was, not yet officially, but in spirit. "Russ," I said quietly, "I'm not asking you to fight my battle. I'm asking you to tell the truth." He took a step back. "You don't get it? People around here don't cross her. They just comply." That word again, comply. Like obedience had become the neighborhood's religion. Before I could answer, Patricia's SUV rolled past. Glossy black, tinted windows, engine humming, too smooth. She slowed at the corner, waved, smile perfect as a brochure. Russell froze, his hand half raised in reflex. She nodded once, then drove on. I waited until she was gone. You see, that's what she counts on. Fear. Silence. He stared at me a long time, then shut off the mower. "Meet me tonight," he muttered. "My garage, after 9, my wife will be asleep." I didn't push for more, just nodded and walked back to my porch, every nerve alive. That evening, June fell asleep on the couch. I tucked a blanket over her, brushed her hair, still thinner where Patricia had grabbed it. I whispered, "We're fixing this," and stepped outside. The neighborhood was unnaturally quiet. Porch lights burned in neat rows, like stage lights for a play no one wanted to admit they were in. Russell's garage door creaked open as I approached. The smell of motor oil and damp concrete filled the air. He had a single bulb hanging overhead, swaying slightly. He motioned me in. "Close it," he said. Inside, he pulled up his phone, scrolling fast. Did some digging. My cloud didn't save the video, but the HOA cameras might have caught part of it. They've got one on the east lamppost. Patricia had it installed after some teenager spray-painted a stop sign last summer. "You think she knows it caught her?" He nodded slowly. "She manages the recordings, but the feed mirrors to the security contractor's archive for backup. If you can get that, maybe there's proof." I exhaled. "You just told me how to end this." He shook his head. "I didn't tell you anything. If she finds out I even mentioned that, I'm screwed." The bulb flickered, throwing his face in and out of shadow. Sweat glistened on his temples. He looked like a man halfway between confession and collapse. "Why are you helping me now?" I asked. He stared at the floor. "Because my kid plays with yours. And when I saw her crying, I realized compliance isn't peace, it's cowardice." That landed heavier than he probably meant. I put a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, Russ. Tonight, you did." He nodded once, jaw clenched. "Then do something with it before she buries us both." I left the garage feeling both gratitude and dread. The sprinklers had kicked on again, hissing over the manicured lawns. Every house looked asleep, but I could feel the eyes, blinds shifting, curiosity humming. Inside, I sat at my desk, pulled up the contractor registry, and started tracing the HOA's security provider. Russell's clue was gold, digital proof that didn't care who was in charge. Outside, thunder rolled low and slow, the kind that promised change. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. By sunrise, I was already in my workshop, coffee gone cold beside a stack of printed bylaws and invoices. The storm had left a film of dew on everything: cables, socket sets, even the laptop I'd half slept beside. I kept replaying Russell's words in my head. The feed mirrors to the contractor's archive. If that was true, there was a copy of the footage somewhere that Patricia couldn't touch. I started by looking up the HOA's security vendor, Centravision Monitoring, a regional firm handling suburban developments. Their logo was stamped at the bottom of one of Patricia's emails, a stylized eye surrounded by laurels. Typical. I called their office. A recorded voice answered. "Thank you for contacting Centravision. Please enter your community code." I didn't have one. I tried the HOA's name instead. The line clicked, then rang. A man answered, voice gruff with boredom. "Centravision Tech Support." "Yeah," I said. "This is Eli Moran from Cypress Ridge Estates. We've got a malfunctioning camera feed on the east lamppost. Ticket number? Didn't get one yet? The HOA said you could look it up. Hang on." Keys clacked. "All right, I see the account. Board contacts a Patricia Hennessy." "Of course," I forced a light tone. "Right, she's out this week. I'm the maintenance contractor she requested to check the feed. We've been getting intermittent recordings." He sighed. "We don't usually release archives without authorization." "Understood. Just need to confirm the mirroring's still active." A pause, then, "Yeah, looks like it. 72-hour redundancy to our servers. You folks had a transfer on file 2 days ago." My pulse jumped. "You mean the footage uploads automatically?" "Every night at 11:59 p.m. "Appreciate it," I said. "You've been a big help." When I hung up, my reflection in the dark laptop screen looked different, sharper, alive. Patricia might own this neighborhood, but she couldn't rewrite timestamps. By afternoon, I'd traced the archive domain and found a login portal hidden behind a vendor dashboard. All I needed was the client ID. Patricia's violation letters were littered with document headers and codes. Somewhere in that pile, her carelessness was waiting for me. June patted in, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, can we go outside today?" I glanced at the empty spot where the ramp used to be. "Not yet, sweetheart. Gotta make it safe first." She sighed and started drawing on a notepad, a little fountain with birds. "That's the one in the park," she said. "The dove one." Her lines were uneven, but I recognized it immediately. The dove of Peace Fountain, the heart of Cypress Ridge. I hadn't noticed until then how often Patricia hosted her HOA meetings there, right under that stone dove, spreading its wings like it was blessing her tyranny. By late afternoon, I found it. The client ID printed on a notice about community surveillance upgrades. Patricia had forwarded it to all residents last year. I entered the code. The site blinked, loading a directory of files labeled by date and camera ID. Cam East, there was 01, time-stamped Tuesday 7:02 p.m., the night of the incident. My hand hovered over the mouse. I clicked. The video buffer stuttered, then played. Rain streaked the lens, distorting light like tears. I saw myself, barely visible, running from the porch toward June. Then, clearer than memory, Patricia's figure crossing the frame. She bent, grabbed something, June's hair, and pulled. It was there. Proof. But before I could exhale, a new notification popped up. User Patricia Hennessy has requested access to this file. She was watching the logs. I yanked the Wi-Fi plug out of the wall and stared at the frozen image on screen. I'd have to move fast, download and store offline before she locked it down. The next 30 minutes blurred into adrenaline. I dumped the file to an encrypted flash drive, labeled it rampcasefootage.mp4, and hid it inside my toolbox under the socket wrenches. When I finally stepped outside, the sunset bled orange across the cul-de-sac. Patricia was trimming her hedges again. Her shears clicked rhythmically, deliberate. She looked up, eyes meeting mine, like she could smell the evidence. "Busy day, Mr. Moran?" "Always," I said. She smiled. "Good. The board appreciates proactive homeowners." Her tone dripped with implication. I could almost hear the unspoken, "I know what you're doing." I turned away before my temper showed. Back inside, I uploaded a copy of the footage to a private cloud account under a pseudonym. Then I called Russell. He answered on the second ring. "Yeah, I've got it." He didn't respond right away. When he finally did, his voice was shaking. Then you need to make sure someone outside the HOA sees it before she buries it. You know how fast she moves. I will. Eli, he hesitated. Be careful. People like her, they don't lose quietly. I hung up and stared out the window. Across the street, Patricia's porch light flickered once, then steadied. Like a silent signal I didn't yet understand. Tomorrow, I'd find someone who could make this evidence count. The next morning, I drove to the county administration building, with the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. The world outside looked freshly washed. Blue sky, dripping gutters, sun cutting through the last of the storm clouds. But inside me, it was still raining. June had asked if I'd be gone long. I told her I was fixing something important. She gave me her crayon drawing of the Dove fountain for luck. I folded it into my jacket pocket, right next to the evidence. At the records desk, the clerk looked up without much interest. Help you? Yeah, I said, sliding over my contractor license. Need to verify property records for Cypress Ridge Estates, HOA filings, vendor contracts, anything public. She typed slowly, chewing on her pen. That's a lot of files. You looking for something specific? Centravision contracts and financial statements for the last fiscal year. That got her attention. You a board member? No, I said, just a resident who got tired of being fined for breathing. She smirked and printed out a stack of forms. Sign these. You can review archive docs in room 204. Room 204 smelled like paper and disinfectant. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I flipped through the files until I found what I needed. Maintenance invoices, landscaping budgets, and a line item labeled Surveillance Enhancement, $2,800. I frowned. Centravision's website listed standard installation costs at half that. Someone was padding numbers. Then I saw the payee field, Hennessy Design Consultants, Patricia's brother's company. I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding. This wasn't just about control, it was self-dealing. She'd been funneling HOA funds through family contracts while harassing residents over fence paint and chalk drawings. I snapped photos of the pages, careful not to draw attention. Then I plugged in the flash drive, opened the footage on the county computer, and took one last look. The clip was clean, time-stamped, GPS verified, no edits. Proof of assault and financial misconduct in one day. Now I needed someone who could act fast, someone outside the HOA. I called the number printed on the corner of a business card I'd saved months ago. Detective Mariana Ortiz, County Prosecutor's office. She'd come by the neighborhood once for a noise complaint. One of Patricia's, naturally, and had left me her card after realizing it was nonsense. Ortiz, she answered, brisk. It's Eli Moran, I said. Cypress Ridge Estates. You told me to call if Patricia Hennessy ever went too far. Her tone sharpened. What happened? She assaulted my daughter last Tuesday. I've got video proof. Silence. Then, bring it in. Today. When I arrived, Ortiz met me in a windowless conference room, coffee in hand. I handed over the flash drive and the photos of the invoices. She plugged it in, watched the footage twice without blinking. When it ended, she exhaled. This isn't HOA business anymore. This is criminal. Will it hold up? I asked. Oh, it'll hold, she said, especially with that timestamp. And these contracts? That's embezzlement if we can prove intent. For the first time in weeks, I felt a crack of light through the wall Patricia had built around me. Ortiz leaned forward. You'll need to stay quiet for now. We're going to subpoena the HOA's financials. Don't warn her. I nodded, though every instinct screamed to confront Patricia. Back home, Russell was waiting on my porch. His eyes darted around like a man standing too close to a live wire. You did something, didn't you? I hesitated. Maybe. Patricia's been calling board members all day. She knows something's off. Good, I said. Let her sweat. He shook his head. You don't get it. She's panicking. She called my boss this morning, said I was leaking HOA information. I'm on probation now. I clenched my fists. I'll make it right. He gave a short laugh. Make it right? You're not fighting one woman anymore, Eli. You're fighting her whole system. He wasn't wrong, but systems fall too, usually from inside cracks they never noticed. As the sun dropped behind the houses, I stood at the window and watched Patricia pacing her porch, phone glued to her ear. Her gestures were sharp, frantic. For the first time, she looked afraid. I turned off the lights and whispered to myself, Good. It's your turn to comply. The phone buzzed. A text from Ortiz. Video verified. Case escalated. Expect contact tomorrow. I smiled, not out of joy, but relief. Justice was finally in motion, and I had momentum. The Dove fountain glowed faintly under the streetlights outside, its stone wings streaked with rain. For the first time, it didn't look like peace. It looked like judgment waiting. Tomorrow, the board would meet. Patricia would show up smiling, clipboard ready. And I'd be there too, with truth on my side and the law behind me. The morning of the board meeting started quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that hums right before something breaks. June sat at the table coloring, her legs swinging over the chair's edge. She'd drawn the fountain again, this time with one wing cracked. I poured her orange juice, trying to act normal. My phone buzzed. A message from Detective Ortiz. Charges under review. Stay calm. Don't provoke her. Stay calm. Easier said than done. At 9:30, I heard the knock. 3 crisp taps. When I opened the door, Patricia stood there in a cream suit, clipboard tucked against her chest like a shield. Her perfume hit first, sharp and synthetic. "Mr. Moran," she said, tone polite but eyes burning. "You're expected at the board meeting in 20 minutes. I'll be there." "Good." Her smile twitched. "We'll be discussing your conduct." She turned and walked off without waiting for a reply. Her heels clicked against the pavement, the sound like nails on glass. June looked up. "Daddy, is she mad again?" I crouched down, brushing her hair back from her forehead. "She's just scared, sweetheart. Scared people make noise when they feel small." "Are you scared?" I thought about it. A little, but not of her. When I arrived at the clubhouse, the small parking lot was full. Neighbors lingered by their cars, whispering. Russell was near the door, arms crossed, face pale. "She's losing it," he muttered as I walked up. "Tried to get the board to censure you before the meeting even started." "She can't touch me," I said, more to convince myself than him. Inside, the air smelled like lemon polish and anxiety. 5 board members sat at a folding table under fluorescent lights. Patricia stood beside a projector screen. She didn't look at me as I took a seat. "Let's begin," she said smoothly. "Mr. Moran, this hearing concerns your repeated hostility toward board officers, including a verbal altercation last week." "Verbal?" I said, laughing once. "You mean when you assaulted my daughter?" A murmur spread through the crowd. Patricia stiffened. "Those accusations are baseless. As vice president, I take community safety seriously." Russell shifted in his seat behind me. His leg bounced like a motor. I knew he wanted to speak, but didn't dare. Patricia clicked her remote. The projector flickered to life, displaying grainy stills, screenshots of my yard, the ramp, letters, even a photo of me yelling mid-rainstorm. "This," she said, pointing, "is a pattern of aggression. We have multiple residents reporting intimidation." Someone in the back whispered, "That's not true," but Patricia ignored it. I stood slowly. "You forgot one photo." She blinked. "Excuse me?" I held up the flash drive. "The one where you drag a 6-year-old by her hair." The room froze. Russell's eyes widened. Patricia's face lost color for the first time since I'd met her. "That's absurd," she said. "There's no such video." "Detective Ortiz verified it yesterday," I said, keeping my voice level. "County prosecutor has it now." Gasps rippled through the seats. Patricia's mouth opened, but no sound came. "Would you like me to show the footage?" I added. She recovered fast, faster than I expected. "You're bluffing. If you had proof, you'd have used it already." "Didn't need to," I said. "I just needed the law to see it before you buried it." Her hands trembled. The clipboard clattered to the floor. The chairperson cleared his throat. "Ms. Hennessy, given these claims, I think it's best we adjourn until legal counsel." "No!" she snapped, voice cracking. "He's lying. He's trying to ruin me." Russell stood up. "He's not lying," he said quietly. I saw it. Every head turned. Patricia spun toward him, eyes blazing. "You?" He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I saw you grab that kid." The silence after that was absolute. Only the hum of the fluorescent lights filled it. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. Patricia gathered her things with shaking hands and stormed out. The door slammed so hard it echoed off the walls. The chairperson turned to me. "Mr. Moran, Don't know what to say. Say you'll fix it, I said. Say you'll make this place safe again. Outside, the sun had turned fierce. Russell followed me out, wiping sweat from his brow. You just dropped a grenade in there, he said. About time, I replied. He gave a weak laugh. You think it's over? No, I said. It's just starting. When I got home, June was waiting by the window. Did the mean lady stop being mean? I smiled, tired but lighter than I'd felt in weeks. She's going to learn what fairness feels like. I tucked the flash drive in my pocket again, feeling its weight. Tomorrow, Ortiz said, the prosecutor would file formal charges, but tonight, the house was quiet. The good kind of quiet. For the first time in months, June slept without flinching at every sound. I sat by her bedside, watching the rise and fall of her breath, the small, unbroken rhythm of peace finally returning. And though I knew Patricia wasn't done yet, I also knew the system she built was cracking, one truth at a time. The next morning, Russell knocked before sunrise. I hadn't even poured my first cup of coffee. He stood on the porch looking like a man who hadn't slept, eyes bloodshot, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. Can I come in? He asked. Yeah, I stepped aside. He paced the kitchen instead of sitting. The early light came through the blinds in thin, fractured lines. June was still asleep upstairs, and the house felt fragile, like one wrong move could wake everything that had finally quieted. She's coming for you, he said finally. I rubbed my temples. Who, Patricia? He nodded. After the meeting, she called an emergency board session without you there, said you doctored the footage, claimed you had a history of violent episodes, PTSD, disciplinary issues. She's spinning it. She's desperate. She's also dangerous. My wife overheard her talking to her brother on speakerphone, something about moving money before auditors check the books. I looked up. She's hiding the embezzlement. Exactly. He stopped pacing, leaned on the counter. I'm done being scared, Eli. You said once that systems fall from the cracks inside them. Maybe I'm one of those cracks. I studied him, the slump of his shoulders, the twitch in his jaw. He wasn't the same neighbor who looked away that first night. He was changing, burning off fear. You sure? I asked quietly. He nodded. I've got access to the HOA's digital archives. My login's still active. If I pull the records tonight, you'll have proof of every fake invoice she's signed. That's risky. He half smiled. Everything worth doing is? I poured him coffee. We sat in silence, listening to the faint rumble of sprinklers outside. The neighborhood looked calm, but under the surface it was ready to erupt. Meet me at the fountain tonight, I said. After dark, bring whatever you find. He hesitated, then said, That fountain, it's funny, you know? Dove of peace. Never seen anything peaceful about it. Maybe it's time it lived up to the name, I said. After he left, I spent the morning reinforcing my own armor. Printed every copy of the footage, secured the files in 3 different drives, wrote down Ortiz's direct line. Patricia might be powerful here, but outside this little kingdom, her clipboard meant nothing. Around noon, I saw her SUV circling the cul-de-sac again, slow, predatory. She stopped in front of my house and rolled down the window. Mr. Moran, she called, you should be careful who you associate with. Mr. Keene has a history of instability. I walked to the curb, met her eyes. So do I said. Her smile faltered. The prosecutor won't help you when this all collapses. People forget. Communities remember. And this community doesn't tolerate liars. Then it's a good thing I'm telling the truth. She drove off, tires crunching over the gravel like distant thunder. By evening, the fountain plaza was empty. The air smelled of wet stone and chlorine. The dove's wings caught the moonlight, pale and cold. I waited in the shadows until I saw Russell approaching, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He looked around nervously. You sure no one's watching? Cameras are on the south side only. We're good. He opened the laptop on the fountain ledge, fingers flying across the keys. I downloaded everything. Board minutes, invoices, wire transfers. Patricia signed off on 27 payments to her brother's firm for projects that never happened. Landscaping, security upgrades, even holiday decorations. Amounts? About 90 grand in total. I whistled low. That's not just unethical, that's theft. He nodded. I already sent copies to Ortiz's office anonymously, used a VPN. She won't trace it back to us. Good thinking. He looked up at me, eyes gleaming with something I hadn't seen in a while. Pride. Feels good to do the right thing, doesn't it? Before I could answer, headlights swept across the plaza, Patricia's SUV again. She parked by the curb, door slamming hard. "Russell!" she shouted, voice echoing off the stone. "Step away from him!" He froze. She marched toward us, heels clicking like gunfire. "You think you can betray me? After everything this community's done for you?" Russell stood his ground. "You mean after everything you've done to us?" Her eyes narrowed. "You have no idea what you're getting into." I stepped between them. "Back off, Patricia, you're done." She looked from me to the laptop. "What's that?" "Your confession in spreadsheets." Her jaw tightened. "You think anyone will believe a washed-up contractor and a mechanic over me?" "They don't have to," I said. "The numbers already do." For a heartbeat, the only sound was the trickle of water from the fountain. Then Patricia turned, stormed back to her SUV, and peeled out of the plaza, tires squealing. Russell exhaled shakily. "You think she'll run?" "No," I said, watching her taillights vanish. "She'll fight, but now she's fighting gravity." He gave a short, tired laugh. "Guess we're the cracks after all." I looked at the dove statue, water cascading down its chipped wings, and thought how sometimes peace isn't soft or silent. Sometimes it's the sound of truth landing hard enough to echo. Tomorrow, Ortiz would have everything she needed, and Patricia would finally face something she couldn't manipulate: consequence. By dawn, Cypress Ridge didn't feel like the same neighborhood anymore. The air carried that brittle tension before a storm, except this one wasn't in the sky. It was waiting in the inboxes of every board member. Ortiz had begun the subpoenas. The county seal on the emails might as well have been a lightning strike. I watched from my porch as Patricia's SUV idled outside the Fountain Plaza. She didn't get out, just sat there, phone pressed to her ear, the dove statue reflected in her windshield like a ghost watching its maker. June was inside painting at the kitchen table. She hummed softly, a tune from a cartoon she liked. For the first time, her drawings didn't have fences or cracks, just sky. By 8, my phone buzzed. Russell. "She's calling an emergency HOA meeting tonight," he said. "No notice, no agenda, says she's addressing community misinformation. Desperation move. Yeah, but she's got friends, the treasurer, the secretary. They owe her favors. If she flips them, she'll spin this as harassment." "She won't get the chance," I said. "We're going to control the story before she does." "How?" "Public exposure." He was quiet. "News?" "Local outlet. The reporter who covered the zoning scandal last year, Lisa Chen. She owes me a favor." He exhaled. "You're serious." "I'm done playing defense." By noon, Lisa met me at a coffee shop outside the subdivision. She was sharp-eyed, quick-moving, voice like she'd swallowed static and turned it into energy. "You sure you want this on record?" she asked after I told her everything. "I want it on every record." She nodded. "I'll need copies. Video, financials, witness statement." "Done." I handed her a folder and a USB drive. "You'll find everything in there." She scanned a few pages and let out a low whistle. "This isn't just abuse of power. This is wire fraud." "Then tell the world." Her smile was small, professional. "Oh, I will." That evening, the clouds came back, heavy, gray, promising thunder. The HOA clubhouse glowed like a stage through the rain. Cars lined both sides of the street. Every homeowner wanted front-row seats to the downfall. Russell met me outside. He was soaked, clutching a flash drive like a lifeline. "Backup copy," he said. "Ortiz called. Prosecutor's office is drafting charges. She said media pressure could speed things up." Perfect timing. Inside, Patricia stood behind the podium, pearls at her throat, smile rehearsed. "Residents of Cypress Ridge," she began, voice steady. "There have been false accusations circulated by a few individuals intent on destroying the integrity of our community." I slipped in quietly, taking a seat in the second row. Russell sat beside me, his jaw set. Patricia continued. "These rumors are defamatory, baseless, and deeply harmful to our shared values." She gestured toward me. "Mr. Moran here has chosen to exploit a personal misunderstanding for attention." My pulse thudded in my ears. I wanted to speak, but Lisa had asked me to wait until her broadcast aired. Timing was everything. Then Patricia made her mistake. I have already consulted legal counsel and will be pressing charges for false reporting and emotional distress. A murmur rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Didn't the cops take her in for questioning?" Her face twitched just slightly. I stood. "Since you're talking about integrity, Patricia, you might want to check Channel 9. Phones came out. Screens lit the room like 1,000 tiny flashlights. Lisa Chen's live segment played. The headline across the bottom read, "HOA Vice President accused of child assault and financial fraud." The footage rolled. The clip from the security feed, Patricia's hand grabbing June, the timestamp glowing like a brand. Her voice broke. This is taken out of context." Russell spoke up. "So are your invoices." He dropped a stack of printed statements on the table. 27 payments, all forged. The treasurer stood. "Patricia, is this true?" She didn't answer. The room fell into chaos. Board members whispering, neighbors recording, Patricia backing toward the door. Her heels slipped on the tile. I didn't move. I just watched her world unravel, piece by piece. Outside, thunder cracked like punctuation. She bolted for the exit, shoving past Russell. Cameras followed her all the way to her car. Lisa's voice echoed from someone's phone speaker. "County prosecutors confirm charges are being reviewed. Patricia Hennessy has been asked to surrender for questioning." I turned to the crowd. "We're not perfect here, but we deserve better than fear disguised as order." No one argued. As the storm hit full force, rain pounding the roof, Russell clapped me on the shoulder. "You did it," he said. "No," I said, staring through the window at Patricia's retreating taillights. "We did." He grinned, tired but proud. "Guess the dove finally found its fight." Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the fountain. Wings spread wide, water overflowing like applause that finally belonged to the right side. Tomorrow, she'd be in custody. Tonight, the truth finally echoed louder than her rules. The storm didn't quit that night. It clawed at the roof, rattled the gutters, made the world outside the window look like it was being erased one drop at a time. But inside, for the first time in months, I slept through until morning. When I woke, June was already in the kitchen. She'd made me breakfast, toast, over-buttered and crooked, with a sticky note beside it that read, "Good job, Daddy." For a second, I just stood there, letting that moment undo weeks of tension. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Detective Ortiz. "Arrest warrant approved. She's in custody. News will break soon. Be ready." I exhaled, long and slow. The sound felt like release. By the time I stepped onto the porch, the sky was clearing. The fountain glimmered in the distance, its water finally running clean. No more SUV idling beside it. No more clipboard patrols. Just neighbors standing in small, cautious groups, talking for the first time in what felt like forever. Russell crossed the street toward me, coffee in hand, wearing a grin that was half disbelief, half relief. "They actually cuffed her," he said, "at her house, right in front of the roses." I couldn't help smiling. "Guess the thorns finally drew blood." He handed me the second cup. "Figured you could use this. You're the new local legend." "Don't start that," I said. "I just did what any dad would do." He shook his head. "No, you did what no one else had the guts to." The door across the street opened. Mrs. Connolly, the retired school teacher, who hadn't spoken to anyone since the HOA fined her for her bird feeder, waved shyly. "Thank you, Eli," she called, "for all of us." I waved back, throat tight. It hit me then. This wasn't just about me and Patricia anymore. The whole neighborhood had been holding its breath. Now it could finally exhale. Russell leaned on the railing beside me. "Board's meeting tonight. Emergency session again, but this time to appoint interim leadership. You going?" "I should," I said. "Somebody's got to keep the peace after the war." He nodded. "You thinking of running?" I laughed softly. "You really think anyone wants me on a board after all this?" "I think they want someone who won't weaponize a clipboard," he said. "That's a start." By evening, the clubhouse was packed again, but the energy was different. No tension, no hushed fear. People were talking, even joking. Someone brought coffee. The chairs that used to face the board table now circled it. The chairperson, Mr. Dalton, a tax attorney with a nervous smile, cleared his throat. Given recent events, we're restructuring the HOA leadership effective immediately. Patricia Hennessy has resigned. A round of applause broke out. Not polite, real. Dalton raised his hands. We'll be holding a community vote next week. Until then, I'll be serving as interim president. He looked at me. Mr. Moran, the board would like to thank you for your cooperation with the investigation. I stood, awkward under the attention. I didn't do it alone, I said. Russell Keene deserves as much credit as I do. Russell gave a modest nod. Someone clapped him on the back. Dalton smiled. Well, both of you have proven that accountability matters. Maybe that's the example we needed. When the meeting adjourned, people stayed, talking, laughing, actually planning. A real community, reborn from its own rubble. Outside, the night air was crisp, clean. The fountain lights shimmered gold. Russell and I walked the path around it, our footsteps echoing on the wet stone. Think it'll last? He asked. Maybe, I said. Depends who shows up when the cameras are gone. He nodded thoughtfully. You know, my dad used to say peace isn't something you find. It's something you build. I looked at the dove statue. Guess we've got some building to do. He smirked. Starting with the ramp? I smiled. Starting with the ramp. The next morning, I was back in work boots, hauling lumber from the truck. June sat on the porch steps, holding nails like it was a ceremony. Is this the same ramp? She asked. Better, I said. This one's staying. Neighbors stopped by, offering coffee, cookies, even help. Russell brought his drill. Mrs. Connolly brought lemonade. By sunset, the ramp was done. June rolled her toy car down it, squealing with laughter. That sound, pure and unafraid, was the best reward I could have asked for. Russell raised his glass of lemonade. To the cracks, he said. I laughed. To the cracks. Because that's where the light had finally gotten in. Tomorrow, the prosecutors would hold a press conference. But tonight, the only headline that mattered was the sound of my daughter's laughter echoing off clean wood and open sky. By the next morning, Cypress Ridge was trending on local news. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, neighbors, even strangers who'd seen the clip online. Headlines called me the veteran dad who stood up to HOA tyranny. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt tired. June sat cross-legged on the living room floor, watching the morning broadcast. Her eyes went wide when the screen showed the Dove Fountain and the caption, Justice in Cypress Ridge. Daddy, that's our fountain, she said, grinning. Yeah, I said softly. Guess it finally means something. The anchor's voice rolled through the house. HOA Vice President Patricia Hennessy was formally charged with child endangerment and embezzlement late last night. Prosecutors credit local resident Eli Moran and witness Russell Keene for providing critical evidence. June turned to me. You're famous now. I smiled. Maybe for 5 minutes. Can we use it to get ice cream? I laughed, the sound surprising even me. Yeah, kiddo, we can do that. By afternoon, news vans were parked outside the subdivision entrance. A cluster of neighbors stood near the fountain, giving interviews. Some held signs. Accountability matters. Hand-painted, uneven, honest. Russell met me at the curb. Lisa Chen wants another statement. You ready for round 2? I already said what mattered, I said. Now it's the system's turn to speak. He nodded. Still, the cameras love a redemption arc. We walked toward the fountain. The air was cool, the water clear, the dove statue scrubbed clean by the rain. Kids were playing nearby, chalk drawings spreading across the sidewalk again. June's chalk bucket sat open among them. She'd written home in big block letters. Lisa waved us over. Eli, can we go live? I hesitated, then nodded. She raised her mic. We're here with Eli Moran, the man whose persistence and documentation helped bring an abusive HOA officer to justice. Eli, what message do you want people to take from this? I looked into the camera, into every living room that had ever watched a neighbor get bullied by bureaucracy, and said, rules are supposed to protect people, not hurt them. If you see something wrong, document it. Speak up. Don't let fear look like order. Lisa smiled. Thank you, Mr. Moran. Russell muttered. You sounded like a politician. Don't jinx me. The crowd laughed. The tension that had lived in this place for months had finally cracked open into something like unity. That evening, the board held another open session, this time televised by the local station. Ortiz stood in the back, arms crossed, watching quietly as Dalton announced a new charter, transparent budgets, open voting, and resident oversight committees. When he asked for nominations for community liaison, someone shouted my name, then another, then a dozen more. I shook my head. I'm not... Russell leaned close. You should. It's not about power, Eli. It's about keeping the lights on so no one like her dims them again. So I stood. I'll do it, I said, but only if Russell's on it with me. The room erupted in applause. Ortiz smiled faintly, then slipped out before anyone noticed. She didn't need the thanks. She'd done her part. After the meeting, people lingered, not wanting to leave. The fountain gurgled outside, steady as breath. Mrs. Connolly brought cookies again. Kids ran circles around the plaza, their laughter cutting through the night air. For once, the word community felt real. Later, after everyone had gone home, I stood alone by the fountain. The lights shimmered across the water, painting my reflection in gold. I pulled June's crayon drawing from my wallet, the dove, the cracked wing. I smiled. She'd drawn it before everything changed, before peace had a chance to mean something here. Behind me, Russell called out, "They want us to rebuild the sign at the entrance tomorrow. You in?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said. He grinned. "Feels weird, doesn't it? Like the ending of a movie." "Maybe it's just the middle," I said. "Peace isn't permanent. It's maintenance, like everything else." He nodded. "Then let's keep maintaining." As he walked off, I looked back at the dove. Its wings caught the light just right, and for a moment it looked alive, as if forgiveness itself had taken shape in stone. If you've ever fought for something that should have been simple, safety, fairness, peace, remember this. Justice doesn't roar. It hums quietly when you finally get to rest. And if you believe stories like this matter, about ordinary people standing their ground, subscribe, because sometimes the smallest battles are the ones that change entire streets. The courthouse smelled like lemon polish and nerves. Fluorescent lights hummed above, too bright, too clean. Like the building itself refused to admit the mess that brought people here. Patricia sat 2 rows ahead, flanked by her attorney and her husband. Her once perfect hair was pulled tight, her nails bare. The clipboard was gone, replaced by a trembling hand clutching a tissue. Russell leaned over to me. "You ever think we'd see this?" "No," I said, watching her shoulders stiffen as the bailiff called the room to order. "Not in this lifetime." Detective Ortiz caught my eye from across the aisle and gave a small nod. "Stay steady." The prosecutor opened with the footage. Again. The same rain, the same scream, the same hand in the frame. It played without sound this time, but the silence was heavier than thunder. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Hennessy, the evidence is clear. You are charged with 1 count of child endangerment and multiple counts of financial misconduct. How do you plead?" Patricia stood slowly, voice shaking. "Not guilty." Her lawyer added, "The video lacks full context, Your Honor. My client was enforcing community safety." The prosecutor didn't flinch. "By dragging a 6-year-old?" A murmur swept the gallery. Patricia's husband lowered his gaze. When they called me to the stand, the room felt smaller. The microphone crackled as I took the oath. My palms were slick, but my voice came out steady. "Mr. Moran," the prosecutor began, "why did you continue documenting even after the harassment escalated?" "Because no one believed me before," I said. "Because people like Patricia win when you stop recording." The defense attorney stood. "Mr. Moran, you've had military trauma, correct? Are you sure your memory isn't colored by that?" I met his eyes. "I remember exactly how it felt to hear my daughter cry. Trauma doesn't distort that kind of sound. It preserves it." He didn't ask another question. Then they called Russell. He hesitated at first, tugging at his collar, but when he started talking, his voice carried. "I saw her do it," he said, nodding toward Patricia. "I didn't stop her, and that's on me, but I won't lie about what happened." The prosecutor asked, "Why come forward now?" Russell glanced at me. "Because silence is compliance, and I've had enough of both." The courtroom went still. Patricia looked away, her lips tightening like she'd swallowed something bitter. When closing arguments ended, the judge recessed for 20 minutes. Outside in the hallway, I sat on a wooden bench beside Russell. "You think she'll get time?" he asked. "Maybe," I said, "but even if she doesn't, she's done here, Everyone's seen who she really is. He nodded. That's its own kind of sentence. Ortiz approached, a file under her arm. You two did good, she said. Not just for yourselves, for everyone who's been bullied by power in small print. Before I could thank her, the bailiff called us back in. The judge had returned. After reviewing the evidence, he said, the court finds the defendant guilty of misdemeanor, child endangerment, and felony misuse of HOA funds. Sentencing will follow. Patricia's knees buckled. Her attorney caught her arm. Russell whispered, It's over. I wasn't sure it was, but it was enough. As the crowd filed out, Patricia turned, eyes red. For the first time, she didn't look powerful. She looked human, scared, broken. I was just trying to make things right, she whispered. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to walk away. But I said, You don't make things right by breaking people. Her husband led her away. Outside, reporters swarmed, microphones flashing like lightning. Lisa Chen was there again. Eli, can we get a comment? I shook my head. Not today. Russell smiled faintly. You've earned a break, man. We stood on the courthouse steps, watching the last of the news vans roll away. The air smelled like rain again. Not the heavy kind this time, but clean, forgiving. Funny, Russell said. All this started over chalk. Yeah, I said, and ended with truth. He offered his hand. I shook it, firm. You ever think about what comes next? He asked. Rebuilding, I said. Not houses, people. As we walked back toward the parking lot, the clouds parted just enough for a slice of sun to hit the courthouse dome. It gleamed gold, sharp, brief, beautiful. For once, it felt like the light wasn't exposing anything ugly. It was just enough. The day after the verdict, the neighborhood felt different, softer somehow. The air didn't buzz with suspicion anymore. Doors that had stayed closed for months were open again, letting out smells of coffee and breakfast. Lawns that used to be battlegrounds now looked like what they were always meant to be, homes. June and I stood at the foot of the ramp that morning, the one we rebuilt together. She held a piece of blue chalk between her fingers. Can I draw now? She asked, almost whispering, like she was waiting for permission from ghosts. Yeah, sweetheart, I said. It's your sidewalk. She grinned and bent down, pressing the chalk to concrete. The sound was faint, that soft scrape of color becoming shape. She drew a dove, wide wings outstretched, same as the fountains. But this one was smiling. Russell walked up the path, 2 coffees in hand. Morning, hero, he said. I shook my head. Don't start, he chuckled. You heard? They're holding a neighborhood vote next week. Folks want you to run for HOA. President. I almost spit my coffee. No chance. Come on, you fought the dragon. Now you gotta guard the gate. I looked around, the trimmed hedges, the sound of kids laughing again, the hum of sprinklers instead of shouting. Maybe he was right. Someone had to keep this peace from rusting. I'll think about it, I said. He smiled. That's a yes in your language. Later that afternoon, a small crowd gathered by the fountain. Ortiz was there, off-duty but still in her gray blazer, chatting with Lisa Chen, who was filming the follow-up segment. The news van's satellite dish gleamed under the sun. Lisa spotted me and waved. Eli, we're wrapping the story today. Want to say something for the closing shot? I hesitated. Then I walked over. The camera light blinked red. You ready? She asked. As I'll ever be. She nodded to her cameraman. Rolling. I took a breath, looked past the lens toward the people scattered around, the same neighbors who once hid behind curtains. I didn't plan to be here, I said. I just wanted my daughter to feel safe. I didn't want to become anyone's example, but I guess that's what happens when you stop looking the other way. I glanced at the fountain behind me, water glinting in the sunlight. This place used to stand for rules. Now it stands for something better, responsibility, and maybe forgiveness too. Lisa lowered the mic. That's perfect. Ortiz clapped my shoulder as I turned away. You did good, Moran. Not a lot of folks get to change their own corner of the world. Just held it accountable, I said. Same thing. That evening, the neighborhood threw an informal celebration. No speeches, no press, just people. Kids rode scooters down the street. Someone grilled burgers. Russell brought his guitar. June danced barefoot in the grass. When the sun dipped low, the fountain lights flickered on. The dove's reflection shimmered on the water, unbroken. Russell started playing softly, an old folk tune that sounded like hope worn thin but still alive. I sat on the curb, June resting her head on my shoulder. "You okay, Daddy?" she asked. "Better than okay." "Do we have to move now?" I smiled. "No, we finally get to stay." Her eyelids drooped. "Good, I like it here now." I watched her fall asleep under the hum of porch lights and quiet laughter. The community had been remade, not by policy, not by punishment, but by people remembering what decency feels like. Later, after everyone went home, I walked once more to the fountain. The air smelled of charcoal and rain-soaked grass. The sound of running water filled the space between thoughts. I pulled June's drawing from my wallet again. The dove, wings unbroken now, colored sky blue. I set it at the fountain's edge, let a few drops of water blur the chalk lines. It didn't erase them, it just softened the edges. Russell called from across the street, "You're gonna make us sentimental, Eli." "Too late," I said, laughing. He waved and disappeared inside. I stood there alone for a long time, listening to the steady trickle of water, the same sound that had been there through everything, indifferent but constant. Maybe that's what peace really was. Not silence, not perfection, but persistence. The fountain lights dimmed, flickered, then steadied. If you've ever fought for something small that mattered more than anyone realized, a ramp, a bit of chalk, a voice, remember this: every act of courage starts quiet. And when you hear that quiet, don't walk away, because the next story could be yours. So stick around and subscribe.